can we create workplaces where every voice matters, everyone thrives and finds meaning, and change and innovation happen naturally?
Okay, now let me take this question apart. Yeah, there are many sub-questions here. How every voice matters, which means that there are two ways. First of all, how do we speak out and what do we express? Yeah, to actually communicate with meanings, not only the form of the talk. And quite a lot of actually maybe the questions and at times dilemmas and also conflicts are maybe not as much external and dependent on situations, but mostly emerging from our own attitudes, and I would call these complexes, which are then different kind of emotions simultaneously being activated with worldview or a mindset type of thoughts. So for example, if one person is doubting whether their contribution is good enough at work, or doubting if the company is moving in the right direction, then one possibility is to look at it as a situation and now start debating on that and voicing that doubt out. But at the same time, there is a possibility that that person has an active process inside of himself or herself, which is composed of a feeling of doubt. And then accompanying that are thoughts of doubt, and maybe that is just that person's view of the situation because of the process of doubt. So maybe there is not as much to be doubted in the whole situation, but it's perceived by the person as a doubt. And now when that person starts to voice that doubt, and then of course it can be now elaborated and discussions developed, but maybe at times that is not at all necessary. So for all people to speak up, we actually need to be clear in our messages too. What is, so to say, our own process, what needs to be dealt with and cleared out before, and now without this complex of the feeling of doubt and the thoughts of doubt active, look neutrally at the situation. And if this situation still has points of maybe confusion or doubt, now is the time to voice really the issue. So at times we just make a lot of communication and voice a lot of things that maybe are not as much to be debated with others, but are just our own processes that need to be dealt with first. So that's how we voice things, but at the same time how people are heard, that needs the presence, that needs other people to be ready to direct their awareness on the person who is voicing something, who is speaking something. So it's not just listening, but also hearing what is being said and what is really being said behind the obvious words. What is the meaning that is attempted there to be communicated. So, and what actually makes it difficult for us to hear others is again our own processes. When you are occupied with your own thoughts, then you are sort of in your own bubble, thinking, commenting on yourself about, oh, what is he speaking or what is she speaking about, or thinking about how you perceive the world or how you view things, thinking about all of these things, and then we are actually almost like isolated in our own bubble, and we don't really listen to others. What is being said? Yeah, and to listen to others, we need to bring our awareness away from listening our own thoughts to listening other people. and that already requires knowing what is awareness, what is this our basic tool that we need, that we all have and use to have contact, quite an intimate contact with everything around us, including other people and all sorts of, what turns towards us, all sorts of questions and problems and so on. So to really hear and listen, then there is more needed than just an attitude of, okay, I will listen to him or her, or a rule within the company stating that we hear everyone. It really requires each individual to be ready to dedicate their own awareness on something, and since we all have only one awareness, then if we listen to others or listen to one person, then at the same time we don't listen to our own thoughts, we don't listen to other sounds, we don't observe other surroundings, we don't, in a way, we like sacrifice everything else to dedicate 100% to that, to listening. And of course, the longer we keep this connection with another person, the more we understand what is actually being said, and can take that into consideration. Now, the second part of the question was thriving, right?
Everyone thrives and finds meaning.
Yeah, everyone thrives. Meaning. Well, actually, I don't think that workplaces can give meaning to people. Yeah, people have to know themselves what it is, how they create meanings in their own life, and what it means for them to be able to express their own potentials, explore what they want to do in life. I think very often it is that people consider workplaces a little bit like extensions from kindergarten. We say that people are managed, as in the same parallel as they are like managed as children, thinking that people don't know how to self-manage, so we have to in a way like organize them in some way. And I think maybe it's okay with kids because they are still learning, but with adults, actually most people would like to be self-motivated, self-sufficient, self-managing, but this culture of managing people is taking a responsibility to the external side, so that people give up managing themselves, or don't train this muscle to manage themselves, because they never need to. They are managed by somebody else. And the second thing I find very peculiar, this in same parallel with kindergarten, is that people expect some kind of like security or safe network from workplaces. This feeling of safety. Yeah, so that the workplace does provide you this feeling of safety, this feeling of belonging and everything. And actually these are very fundamental perceptions, so to say, by an individual, and they can't be outsourced, this feeling of safety, this feeling of belonging. Because when you try to outsource them, then you will always depend on situations. You will depend on circumstances, which ones are going to provide the safety for me and which ones are not. Well, actually, the feeling of safety comes from being, very solidly with two of your own legs, standing on ground. It's actually your own quality to feel the safety, to feel belonging, and not as much dependent on external workplaces providing that. So I think when people take more responsibility for their own feelings, how they feel, what they think, and how they position themselves in their own life and in the world, then actually they depend less on companies and workplaces providing that. And then it will revolve into a like normal relationship between the employee and the company, where the employee does not depend, so to say, on the company, but a collaboration can happen, a real collaboration. It's companies in a little bit and employees, they are like marriage. You know, you go and you tie yourself with some kind of process. And like in marriage, you can't expect the other person to make you complete, to make you whole, yeah, because that means you are expressing demands, you are expressing that like needs to the outside, that you have to make something for me. While actually a normal process will happen if you become with your own wholeness, already being whole. And then the other person comes with their own wholeness, and you come together, and now there is this like exponential growth of wholeness, but one does not depend on the other to be made into a whole. And if this other one is not catering these needs, then you feel like justified to demand these needs to be catered. So the same, I think, with employees and companies, we can't expect the workplaces to keep on catering these, so to say, deficiencies or feelings of this incompleteness or search for the whole, and expect that something else, whether it is a person, a company, a spouse, somebody else, to cater these needs. And of course, when people start to take more responsibility of their own basic state, so that they become themselves a whole, then of course if they go work in a company, then that result is going to be totally different. That is going to be a person who is ready to contribute, who is ready to voice what needs to be done, who is ready to take initiative and so on, because is not in a position anymore to demand anything or expect anything to be catered for him or for her. Mm-hmm. So I think how people can thrive is taking more responsibility for their own life, for their own processes of becoming more complete, more whole, and not to expect that to be compensated from the outside, including the companies. Yeah.
Okay, very good. And the last part of that word, change and innovation, happen naturally. It's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big one again. Innovation always comes. Innovation is something new. Yeah. So every time we use our awareness to map the circumstances, notice the details that are here, and leave out our mental apparatus, the thinking tool that is based on the memory. So every time we leave that out, we have a chance for insight. And all new things come out of insight. Whereas if we rely on thinking, then when thinking is based on memory, then what is in memory? Old things are new things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, old things. So it's a store or an archive. And if we, no matter how we combine things in memory and come up with new combinations, they are still combinations of something and not anything. Like they're still thinking inside the box, so to say. It's not something new. All of the new innovations have come through insight, from people realizing that things could be totally different than they have been up to now. And that's true innovation. And how innovation would become more part of our lives means we have to use this other information processing system, which is insight and awareness, more than we have been using the mental tool, the mental apparatus, with all of the thought process going on and so on. So there are two different kinds of processing information, and how we can introduce more innovation and creativity to companies is to emphasize not the thinking part, but more how people can use their own awareness to have insights, to have them more frequently. All of these aha moments. Yeah. So I think in this way, I would call what are interpersonal skills, the skills that we need to manage our internal, possibilities and capabilities. That how we are emotionally, how often and what we think, and how we use our own awareness and the tool of differentiation and insight. This is how we can actually, open up more of our potentials and elevate our way of being or performing or whatever we think is important through better knowing how to use these levels inside of us, to have skills to manage them. Yeah. So I think it's not something that can happen in a professional training way. You learn new marketing skills, you learn new some kind of strategies in a very fixed manner. All of these rules and strategies, they are for people to somehow organize them externally. But actually new things come out of personal creativity. And so personal responsibility and interpersonal skills, I think, have been, so to say, left behind or have been on the background more, and these professional skills have been more, maybe too much on the forefront. And that's why we haven't developed capacities to have insights and use awareness, and we more or less copy things and therefore are a little bit stuck.
Okay, next question is, how can leaders and managers get an employee's best performance and full attention?
Yeah. To get a good performance, you need people to really pay attention to what they have to do, right? Yeah. And at the same time, to be really honest in evaluating themselves, what they know, what are the skills they already possess, and what are the things that they still need to develop or investigate. So you have to become aware of, in a way, where do you need more information, where do you need more practice or skills to do this work in a very good way, not to do it in an impeccable way, not to just do something, So, and that's when you really have to not think about what you know, but really observe in a neutral way, so that you are not biased emotionally. Okay, I know that, so that you don't overestimate yourself or underestimate yourself. In a very neutral way, become aware of, okay, for this task, what kind of skills do I have? And now, if you need to learn something more, not to take it as a personal setback, that, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm, stupid, or I'm not going to ask that person because what he or she might think of me, so I'm not going to ask for help, I'm not going to ask for guidance or anything. So all of these things that get activated in a person on an emotional and mental level, this feeling of looking like a fraud, or looking like an imposter, or a feeling of being inferior, all of these actually inhibit and obliterate the capability of really ask for more information, ask for guidance, ask for relevant information that you need to make this project really a success. So those obstacles need to be cleared out, and not by the management, but by the people themselves. And of course, from that win all of the parties involved, and especially people themselves, because they can now, in a more non-drama way, understand how they can explore further their own potentials, what they like, what they want to do, what they don't want to do, and so on. So all of these obstacles that are there and people face when they need to develop further whether searching for information or asking for help, these need to be cleared out. And then we can start to talk about really top performance if we are not biased and held back by our fears, doubts, feelings of whatever, being feelings of being out in the open and like naked, so that people can actually see you. And how really to then make how to draw employees' attention. That always is there are two options, and they both run from the edge of awareness. If people do not learn what is awareness, how you use your own awareness, which is very close to attention awareness, but is not the same thing in its essence. If you don't know what your awareness is and how you use it, then your awareness is on, so to say, monkey mind mode. It jumps around. You become aware of things, but in a random way. And monkey mind is always stimulated or, so to say, drawn by novelty, stimulus. So for those people who have monkey mind, and most of the people have, because there is no education about how to keep your awareness at one place when you need it to be there, and as long as you need it to be there. And to attract those monkey mind type of awareness, you need to present stimulus, new stimulus. And there is always competition with stimulus. When a manager or a team leader or even a colleague speaks, and there is a competing stimulus, somebody enters from the door, and there is a presentation going on. Where is the people's awareness going to be? At the door, looking who is entering. So that's a novel situation or a new situation within the, so to say, routine situation, which is the presentation is going on. Yeah. So the awareness is going to go there. And at that time, of course, whatever whatever is being said during the presentation, there's going to be a gap. So nobody will remember that place or that phrase. That needs to be repeated. Yeah, and that's the problem with the monkey mind syndrome. Our awareness gets hijacked away to other stimulus, and now when people don't know how to regulate, how to direct it themselves, then now if you want to really draw this person's attention, you have to offer a new kind of stimulus all the time. And you don't compete only with the external stimuli, a light flashing from there, a sound coming from there, somebody making a funny face, a phone ringing. You always compete with the internal, so to say, a stimulus as well. And what is the internal stimulus? That's our thoughts. Whenever the person's own thoughts are more interesting or more new, or it's an illusionary new, because there is actually in essence nothing new in thoughts, because they come from memory, but because they always change. They are in constant change. We all have around 60,000 thoughts a day, so that's an immense change happening there all the time. It's like if you watch a news channel, there is this news feed on the bottom of the screen, always changing, and although there is information you've already read, you still keep your awareness there and just like observe how that information repeats. And the same thing happens inside with our thoughts, and they change all the time, and therefore they always attract awareness. And now this person who is outside and attempting to attract attention, attract awareness in more specific, is competing with that internal voice. And now that depends which one is more, so to say, important, more new, more stimulus provoking. And that leads to actually then people or situations needed to be like very, very stimulating. And that's why, people who go to meetings or conferences value highly those kinds of events where there are like, very intense stimulus is happening. You have to be almost like a clown there, offering all sorts of stimulus, playing with your voice and your body language and everything. The message itself should be enough of importance, enough of stimulus. But since we don't know how to direct our awareness, we depend on the stimulus and get hijacked if there is no stimulus. And that's actually, that's a pity, because not to know that we have awareness and not be able to direct that, I think is one of the biggest misfortunes or saddest things that can ever happen to a person. So how do we actually now deal with that? Yes, there is one way of even giving more stimulus and more and more and more, but there will be a line where we just can't get even more, action movies can't get too more like actionable than they are now. Where does this line go? How much stimulus can we offer? And because there is always this threshold that gets, higher and higher. We get used to the old stimulus, and now we need even more intense. So that's why people are seeking more intense experiences all of the time, because the old stimulus is not able to provoke or draw their attention anymore, their awareness anymore. And this is a trap, because we are dependent on stimulus. Mm-hmm. So the actual process is reverse. We shouldn't and we don't need to depend on stimulus. Instead, we have to discover what is our awareness, and now be able to direct that into a place where we need connection, whether it is listening to one person, observing a presentation, even outside of workplaces, when there is this recharge moments, so that you can, take part in your relaxation moments, be with your family, be with your kids, be present with your awareness there. And then you can easily, now when you go to work, without feeling guilty or anything, dedicate your attention, your awareness to work. Now what's different, just a tiny difference between attention and awareness, is that attention is something that we call when awareness is random, when it is dictated, or its stability is dictated by stimulus. So when the stimulus is constant and it's able to draw awareness, then it's not because the person themselves is able to maintain that awareness at that one place, but because the stimulus is enough at that moment. So when it's dependent on stimulus, we call it attention. When it's your own skill, we call it awareness. Mm. So attention is always random, and awareness is always listens to your own will, or always self-directed.
What do you think people are really longing and lacking for?
I like that one.
In the workplace today?
I like that a lot. I would turn this question around. Yeah, we in usual society see that there is always lack. We always lack something. We lack motivation, we lack happiness, we lack potential, we lack joy, we lack contacts. We see it as if I'm lacking something. Again, this touches the deeper sides of us. We are always, actually we ourselves are not. There is also a distinction here. Inside of us, or how we are actually built, there are many levels we are like, it would compare to a car. There are many systems at work at the same time. You know, the body of the car, the interior of the car, the electricity, the ventilation, all of the gear and whatever, then gasoline or electricity, whatever is the driving force in that car. But no car actually moves without a demand or a command from a person. Whether that command is in a very simple way, like we just change the gears, or it is this automatic gearbox car, or if it's in the future a self-driving car, still there is going to be a command from someone who's going to command and ignite this car and dictate where it goes. So there is always a boss. There's always someone there who is leading all of those functions that happen in the car, regulating the speed, regulating maybe the ventilation system, regulating the temperature, regulating everything. So the cars don't, so to say, move by themselves. There's always a commander demanding that. And so it is the same with us people. There is a commanding part in us, capable of commanding, and that is what we call the self. And that's the most intrinsic or the core part of us. And then there are systems and functions that we can lead, or the self can lead. And those are the body system. You know, we can make the body go to the right or to the left, or jump or stay at one place. So we can, so to say, command our body to do things. And of course, that's not in a violent way. It's more a collaboration way. You know, you want to go to one place and your body takes you. You're like a traveler inside of this body, and you use this body to go places. Yeah. And there is another level inside of us, and that's the vital level, the emotional level. It's connected with our energy, the vital, how vital we are, and very much dictates how we behave. Because, for example, if you are having an emotion of anger, that will decide or determine your level of energy and your behavior and your thoughts. Yeah. But if you have an emotion of boredom, then that will decide your totally other type of energy and other type of thoughts and other type of behavior. So emotions actually have a big role, and they are totally different system than the body system. Yeah, we can't explore them like we explore the physical bodies through surgery or pictures or blood analysis. They are different system, but we know, at least empirically, we know that emotions are there and we all experience them. And then there is always the mental level, the information processing level, information that is stored in memory and reproduced from memory in all sorts of ways, whether it is recall or imagines to the future, imaginations, or just a thought process, an analysis there. And that's a totally different level than the emotions was. So it's an information processing level, data, secondary data. That is the copy of the outside data. You know, when you heard a song, really, that was the primary data when you hear the song. And now you have that as a copy in your memory. And now when you hear that song from your memory, that's the secondary data. That's a reproduction in a way, a copy, not the real thing. So memory and mental tool is concerned with secondary data, a copy data. And then there is awareness. That's our tool to become aware of, to explore, and so on. So we all have these systems, and there is the self. And the self is supposed to lead awareness. Self is supposed to lead the mental tool. It's supposed to lead the emotional level. It's supposed to lead the body. Yeah. But very often now in our society, and it has been going on for centuries, we actually don't know who this self is. And we actually are run by complexes that are made out of the emotional and the mental counterpart. that get activated and triggered automatically. The sun comes out and you feel in a certain way and start thinking in a certain way. Somebody sidetracks you in traffic while you are moving. So you get an emotion triggered and you start thinking in a certain way, that bastard, what did you do? And at workplaces, you see one certain person and you know exactly who is the one who is going to trigger your complex of inferiority that is composed of an emotion and thoughts of inferiority, who is going to trigger your complex of enthusiasm. When you always get, inspired, enthusiastic, those are actually complexes, and they are what is called the autopilot. And now we see that mostly 99% of our lives are actually run on those autopilot things. Whichever data gets presented in the external is going to touch our internal data, the secondary data, and the corresponding emotion. And therefore, we don't even live our own lives, but we live the lives of complexes, of these reflexes that are actually then very similar to instincts, because they are automated and reflex-like. They are human-made, human-constructed instincts that we have copied from everyone around us and society in a way that we don't even know we have copied them. For example, American people act in a very different way from some kind of European people, for example, Italians or even Estonians, or Russians or Japanese. And these are culture copied complexes that get activated and determine how we actually act without our knowing that we act in a specific way. We only discover this complex in comparison with somebody else who has a different kind of complex. And then we see that, okay, there's a difference here. And now, so most of our lives is actually run by these automated complexes as on autopilot. And this is called the ego, the pseudo self, or the non-self, the other self. So there is this real self that is supposed to lead the life, and then there is this complex-made self that involves all of the me talk. I am Helena, I am a doctor, I am a businesswoman, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm beautiful, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm productive, I'm lazy. All of these I's is not actually you. These are different kind of descriptions of either a situation, a complex, or something given to you by society. These are not actually your identities. We all have just one identity, and that's the self. But we don't identify with that self. We try to identify with all of those other pseudo-identities, whether am I going to be, today I'm going to be this very assertive, outspoken person. Today I'm going to be this self. And when somebody talks to me in a certain way that my complex of maybe inferiority gets triggered at work, then I'm going to be this other self. This I'm suffering, I'm not understood by others. So now I'm going to be this victim self. And there are hundreds of these selves that we change like clothes. And then, God forbid, somebody tells you, just be yourself. And you think, oh God, out of these hundreds, which one? Although none of them is actually you. So our lives, we could be leading those. Our lives could be leading our systems, could be leading our potentials, but we're not, because we are not taught that. And we just take over from society what has been here before. And we have been copying this for centuries, because not only genes are given from generation to generation, all of these patterns, all of these worldviews are given as well. And now when we look at this, why do we have the sense of lack? We have the sense of lack because we don't actually know who we are. We always, we feel that we are not complete, that something is wrong here, something is missing here, but we don't know what. And these ego-based selves, these pseudo-identities, this is what is wrong. You can never feel your 2 feet on the ground firmly. You will never have the stable feeling of happiness if you're looking at that from emotions, for example, because all emotions always change. You can never hold a stable emotion, happiness 24/7, week after week. They are meant to change. Emotions are like seasons. They are created to change, and it is foolish of us to look for stability from amongst changing phenomena, and to look for stable happiness, look for some feeling of stability, feeling of security from inside this changing either emotions or these changing I descriptions, the pseudo I's. You will never find stability from there. There is only one place that is stable, and that is you. So we have to more, internally move towards ourselves and abandon all of these false pseudo identities if we want to feel really, anchored in life, if we want to be happy in life, because that is all that is naturally existing in the real self. And this feeling of lack is a compensation, a distant memory of one time, many times ago, you were a whole, you were complete, and now you've lost that. And we have this feeling of lack. And actually then now we're not lacking anything. There is not a lack of motivation. Instead, there is a presence of a complex that is, for example, a boredom. Yeah. So what is the opposite of boredom? The opposite of boredom is maybe activity or taking initiative, something very natural. Yeah. So when we actually get rid of this automated, this boredom that has been activated in an automatic way, that is actually a reflex. When we know how to liberate ourselves from these autopilot type of reflexes, then we get more closer to our natural self. So when there is no boredom anymore, then normal motivation can arise. So there is no lack of motivation, only an excess of boredom. There is no lack of joy. What is present actually when you don't experience joy? There is something there, there is some identity there that is made out of an emotion, maybe sadness, with corresponding thoughts of sadness. Yeah, so that's actually an excess. So we need to be able to diffuse or discontinue this automated process of sadness. And then what is the opposite of sadness? Normal joy will arise. So we don't, in a way, lack anything. We don't lack peace. We only have an excess of either anger or greed or irritation or whatever there is in a certain person. So there is never lack, only an excess of things that we actually are not, and we identify too much with.
What do you think is the most important question leaders or managers should be asking employees?
Yeah. Let me just get a sentence. One of the things, of course, is that not asking what do you want, but what do you actually need. Yeah, to get the work done, to balance, so to say, integrate your this work into your life. more easily. So what can we do to help that? And I hope then from the people's side they are really honest on giving this answer too. And of course it has more to do than with the person themselves, because when we come to work, we bring all of us to work, or at least in nowadays and in new companies, we expect that, so that the person doesn't leave half of them behind, in the car, in the parking lot, where you leave all your creativity, all your ability to innovate, and all your good ideas. You just come there to work as a robot. So we bring all of us to work, and if we bring all of us to work, then literally everything comes along. So all of the problems too, all of the home too comes along. You take everything there, because in an integrated way, not only half of you. So managers can ask, how can I help you now to integrate everything that you are, and how that integrates with this work, so that you can work in the best way, in an optimal way. And of course that refers again to interpersonal skills, because those are the things that have never been taught. Those have never been emphasized at workplaces. Only professional skills have. So maybe the thing to ask is, how do you feel? And if you feel bored, maybe I can offer you some kind of education, so that you are able to deal with that boredom, and then of course perform a lot better at work. There's not too much of effect if, for example, a person is bored inside but makes a mask of I'm fine, how are you? Fine, just fine. And you can train their professional skills as much as you want. But if that person has, for example, a simple emotion of boredom or anger or irritation, then all of those professional skills are not going to be used up to their potential. So it's time to really ask people what do they need help with, not what they want, because they want many things, but what do they actually need, and then see how that can be delivered, helped. Because if those things are not taught anywhere else, then maybe companies can teach people how to self-manage better, so that they don't depend on external management as much. And also this motivation case, that we don't depend as much on external motivation, all of these motivation courses and trainings and so on, so that people can, become aware of what is disturbing their motivation, what is the excess here, get dealt with that, and become normal, potential, good performing employees. What's the next question now? Was employees from management, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Again, employees from management can ask the things that they actually need, and not only what is superficially given or what they seem to want. And just one easy thing too, what employees can ask is, how do I fit into a bigger picture? Where is this company going towards? And what is the mission or the role of this company? How do I integrate now everything that I am, that I bring with me into this company? That question is very often unanswered. It might be a nice slogan on a website, maybe on an office wall, what is our mission? But people don't maybe understand the real message or the meaning behind that as easily, because they don't go, so to say, into the heads of the founders or the leaders or the managers. So that message, the more clearly it is brought out, I think is going to help a lot for the employee to understand, is my place here, and how I, in a best way, can now use my skills that I have to advance the overall mission of the whole company.
Now, what about the most important question we can ask ourselves?
Yeah. I think to narrow down what I have been talking about before, to what we can ask ourselves is, who is living our lives? Yeah. Am I really living my own life? Or am I living the lives of these automated complexes, of this autopilot, of these copies? Do I actually know even what my life is? What am I without those complexes? If I don't have a feeling of sadness anymore, and I've known this feeling of sadness for 10 years, what am I? If I don't identify with that. If I have had one problem, which is actually a situation for years, and I identify with that, I'm this, I don't know, whichever problem, I'm this in 3 points, an X. So if you don't identify with that problem anymore, who are you? If we take away all of these pseudo-identifications, these misidentifications, and more deeply look, what am I actually? And that's when you really become more yourself, because you can't be less of yourself or more of yourself in actual way. You just are yourself or you are not. You either are yourself or you're just one of those pseudo selves. But the more closer you come to differentiating who you are and who you definitely are not. So you're not these roles, you are not these situations, you are not these feelings that you have been maybe in chronic activation, and you have started to identify with those, that I am an anxious person. I am an easily irritated person. I am this melancholic person. This is not our identity. The more we clear out who we actually are and who we actually are not, that's when our real life begins. And that's when you start to live your real potential. You start to just discover what is meant for you, what you can do, and what you have been called for, and whose life you have been living before. All of these conditionings that you have received from society, family, who knows from where, literature, news, we're all playing somebody else. And so this is the question to ask, really. Of course, the more you become, then the more easier everything gets, and a lot of conflicts get resolved in a very easy way. The more people are themselves, the better all of the relationships and communication, and less of the problems, because most of the problems are driven because of the emotional clashes between us, the mental worldview, beliefs, mindset clashes between us. If we take all of those aside, then we find a common ground, how we are all similar in certain ways. Only these complexes are the ones that are different from people to people. In the core, we are all similar. So we can ask this question, who am I really, without all of these pseudo identities? And that's when you start to live your own life. And previously you just lived the lives of these other things. And people search, what is the meaning of my life, and what should I actually be doing, and what is my potential, and so on. That's what is going to become clear only then, because then you have no, so to say, pink glasses or black glasses or yellow glasses in front of your eyes. And then actually all of the questions about who am I and what am I supposed to do at work, how do I advance my career, and so on, all of these naturally just fall off, they crumble away in a way. And you start to see that since we all, at least as long as we live on this earth, in this life, are always active. We are active 24/7. We're always in action. Even sleep is an action. That's a very beneficial action, and you will notice the role of that action if you skip that action. So we are always active, even if we are lazy, we are still doing something, and we are participating, consuming the emotion of laziness. If we are worrying, we are thinking on something, then we are doing something. So we're always active. And if you become more of yourself and you know that you are always active anyway, we are active on the physical level or emotional level or mental level, our awareness is always on something, being aware of something, we're always active, then we don't want to find some artificial things that, okay, what should I be doing? Then you start to take life in a very easy way. What turns towards you in life asks you to participate in it. Then you just look for yourself. Are you able at the moment, taking into consideration all of your other commitments? Are you able to participate in that? And how would you contribute and participate in that? And then you make a decision, either you go along with that or you don't. So life starts to turn towards you, offering all sorts of ways to take part in collaboration, in creation, in making things happen, either within companies or with other people, however. And when you are more of yourself, then that becomes a natural way of life. Just things turn towards you and you take part in it, because you will always take part in something anyway. And it becomes easy. So to find this easiness and this flow, we need to ask, who am I? Yeah. So how can we make that reality so that we are not as attached to our pseudo-identities driven by our autopilot, being more of ourselves? It requires personal responsibility. That's actually the main thing here. To really understand that, whose life are you living? Yeah? If you're living your own life, then you are actually responsible for creating this life, and only you and nobody else. And if we look at teams, then teams are made of people, these individuals. And exactly how those individuals are determines how those teams are. And companies are nucleuses, like bigger organization of these nucleuses, these teams. And societies are even bigger, bigger amount of different kind of organizations and people who have gathered into some teams or groups. But everything starts from a person, single person, an individual. And the more we prioritize for each and every one of us, ourselves, the need to become more human and less of an automated animal driven by automated complexes and so on. Some people call that awakening, which is not wrong. So you become more like, open your eyes out of this dream of autopilot. So that's why it's called an awakening. You just like awaken, like, ooh, what has been going on? Yeah. And you just now look with your eyes that, whose life have I been living, and so on. So how we make that a reality is each and every individual taking responsibility for dealing really with these complexes, this autopilot that is driving us. And that cannot be an idea like, I'm working with whichever, subconscious every day, and this, it can't be an idea of evolving somewhere, an idea of becoming more of a human. It has to be very practical. You notice a complex getting activated. You talk to a person and you notice that, something got activated. And that's the moment when you actually need now tools, a skill set. What do you do on that very spot with the thing that got activated? Yeah, becoming more of a human is not a meditation. This is not some kind of an exercise at the back of the room where you are isolated from society, from noises. You're like in this Zen position and you isolate yourself and do some very advanced things there. Yeah, becoming more of a human means that in the middle of your own life, in the midst of everything, your work, your dog, your cat, your family, your problems, your conflicts, everything, in the middle of those very things, you become more human. And human means less of an human robot on autopilot. So whichever makes you go on autopilot, you need skills to change that. Yeah, to become aware of the things that are happening. So the awareness is the main tool. To become aware of what's happening, to become aware of how those things can be changed, and learn the tools, how you use your awareness to say discontinue the autopilot in all of those situations where it gets triggered, and also positive and negative ones, both. Yeah, those are all part of that. So how do we integrate these into companies? Companies can introduce this kind of knowledge, these kind of trainings, this kind of know-how to people, how to really become more self-sufficient, self-managed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm glad we got that question in.
Yeah.